Right now, millions of people on this planet are already in contact with extraterrestrials and they don't even realize it. These beings are contacting us through our dreams and through our subconscious, and many of the thoughts and ideas that we're coming up with don't originate from us. The purpose of contacting people through their dreams and subconscious is to acclimate them and prepare them for open face-to-face contact.
Well, I'm James Gillen, and we're here at ESETI Ranch. Well, ESETI stands for Enlightened Contact with Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Yeah, the beginning of ESETI actually came in visions. And I kept seeing visions of this massive mountain. And when I first came on the property, it was just unbelievable. It was like a movie out of the Old Testament or something. The mountain just, clouds started changing. There's a giant lenticular cloud. It was lit up orange underneath. I got such a download, I was getting tears. I was just standing there looking at the mountain crying, and I go, this is it. This is the vision. I was focused on creating a healing center, like a retreat center, and I wanted to just make it totally eclectic. I didn't want to pigeonhole it or keep it with any one group. And about probably halfway through of building this center, they started showing up. The ships started showing up.
It's got a double, it's weird. Babe, whoa, whoa, thank you. That is unbelievably bright. Whoa, look at that, Woo-hoo, whoa.
And the first encounter was an all-day meditation. I was meditating, and I had a beautiful transmission coming to me about the earth and humanity and our ancient history, who we are and how we've gotten to where we are and what needs to happen to heal, you know, to clean up the planet and the consciousness here. And so I asked them, where are you coming from? And they said, actually, we're on a ship. And I didn't even make it to the door, and my sister and her friends came up banging on the door, and they go, did you see it? Did you see it? And I said, see what? There was a huge light ship hovering right over the house here. So that was my first encounter where I realized I needed to start doing some research on tying in the higher dimensional beings and the spiritually and technologically advanced off-world visitors into the spirituality side of things. When you go within and start expanding in consciousness, we find out we're not just a body and a personality, we're a spirit and a soul, and that's a multidimensional aspect of ourselves. And so as you expand in awareness, you start taking in these other dimensions, and contact is a natural occurrence when that happens.
My name is Barry Littleton. I do stock trading, level 2 options, and I also am involved in social services. In the UFO field, I'm kind of just stepping forward. It started off with childhood experiences, so that's one of the things, but then I went into what I call adult onset experiences, which included missing time. So we're looking almost 20 hours of my life was missing behind being upon board these ships. When I talk about it now, it sounds very uniform, but it took a lifetime to put the pieces together. Instead, I was more into hiding it to a degree and trying to just be normal and whatever it took to kind of try to blend in instead of talk about these experiences, anything like what I'm doing now. I always heard it as termed as demonic and dealing with demons, and that labels somebody as demons and crazy and puts the most negative connotation on it possible. So that's one problem I think there is there, and that's a real way to block people from talking about this and ever coming forward. These beings, they never would give me any revelations about the future, but they only gave me information concerning the earth and always the technologies, and there was a lot of love energy that came off them. Enough to where being in the presence of a non-human, it would somewhat chill you out because it's not just a normal thing, and there's a great risk of panic there, but the type of vibration coming off them, coming off their biofields, was very calming. It started off with a being that was insectoid, and when he would come and interact with me in my daily life, he was doing something with the optic nerves, I'm sure of that, to make him appear even more human. But when I saw him on board craft, he was definitely insectoid and ancient. Smaller, okay? That'd be the first being that stepped forward to me. There was another one stepped forward that was Mana, but looks like Earth's brain coral is the way this being's head looked, okay? And taller, but very peaceful and also very scientific to a degree. I've also seen small blue beings that claim to be from Andromeda, maybe about 2.5 feet tall, I would say. Those are some. And then there's the other portion that I had a hard time dealing with because there's no frame of reference for this, is that beings that are on board these crafts that are non-corporeal, non-physical. They have different containers for their consciousness, like plasma or light configurations. The inside of the crafts themselves that I've seen look like type of a fungus, a type of a hard mushroom that's slightly different. So that told me that these craft are actually organic. If we're going to become a type 1 civilization, we need to start just not incorporating the spiritual, but also the organic components into our space travel, definitely. I believe what is happening on the planet right now is a shift in consciousness. And meaning not, I've heard it called other things such as ascension, we're going to go to another dimension. I've heard all these things, but I think in reality, it's a shift of consciousness. Because at least in my opinion, 85 to 90% of our population has had extreme contact, but they can't remember it. They're unaware of it due to the fact our perception is so molded. Internet has helped with starting communication amongst what I call melanin-dominant contactees, experiencers. And like I said, it was the indoctrination of religion that kind of stopped that to a degree. But right now, I think that the fact that certain people are coming forward and taking it through darts, a few darts, is making it more accessible to others and others more comfortable about it. I believe they are reaching out because they're wanting right now to help us with this shift in consciousness. And what has been shown to me is humanity does have a type of free will, but we're not going to be allowed to destroy the earth anymore.
Yeah, my name is Robert Salas. I'm had experience in the 60s at Malmstrom Air Force Base as a missile launch officer. When this incident happened, right afterwards, we were ordered to sign a non-disclosure statement, and that had very strict penalties if we broke that. The incident was classified. However, since it had been a long period of time, they were going to declassify what I'll call the Echo flight shutdown of 10 missiles. The Echo flight incident happened March 16th, 1967. Ours happened 8 days later, March 24th, 67. In addition to that, there have been many other incidents involving UFOs at nuclear missile sites. It happened again at Minot in 1968. It happened at Whiteman Air Force Base, right, and other bases, similar incidents. It took time to get to the point where I realized that we were certainly not alone in the universe. And I had plenty of time, of course, because I couldn't talk about it. But eventually I did get to that point, and it was a kind of awakening that what we were doing on Earth here, building up nuclear stockpiles, having the ability to completely destroy every living thing on the planet, was not acceptable, not only to us, but to others in the cosmos. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki still haunt me. I think about that a lot. And the fact that we could easily be involved in nuclear war today. We've done it with Chernobyl, we've done it with Fukushima. That's immoral. It's immoral to the whole human race. We can't just adopt the morals or ethics of one particular country or group of people. We're talking about humanity as a whole and how we fit into the cosmos. You know, we are, it should be obvious to everyone by now that we are not alone. And it's ridiculous to think that we are. And the entities have spoken. They have said, you should not have nuclear weapons.
My name's Peter Maxwell Sledují, and I'm from Australia, and I'm a lifelong experiencer with probably the largest catalogue of UFOs, paranormal activity captured on camera and video in the world. There's so many different types of crafts that I've filmed, whether they look like they're plasma, they're morphing, changing shape, these egg-shaped type crafts, pearls, and that's, you know, we look at the translated word of Buddha, they talk about pearls in the sky that brought the gods down to earth to visit man. I've always been an experiencer since a young age. It started off with telepathy. Not long after that, I started to see grey aliens, but they were white. I didn't know if they were alien, you know, angels, demons. I just didn't know what it was. My journey with coming out about my experiences was the hardest thing I have and ever will do, in my opinion. I've been shot at. I've had death threats. I get hate mail almost on a daily basis. And I didn't ask to go on the news or to talk about this. I had the news come to me and ask me if they could use my footage, and I just wanted to know what the hell was going on. I went and got brain scans. I went and talked to people. I thought I was literally going insane. A lot of us do think about suicide. We think about just going away and never ever seeing anybody ever again, or just completely forgetting about this reality and going back to a 3D life. To tell my mother and father, my brother, my stepbrothers and sisters, friends, I was sort of stupid to some extent, thinking people are just going to believe this because I experienced it. Because when it's happening, it's like, you know, the world needs to know this. This is the most important subject. It goes through everything to do with energy, agriculture, society, everything we can think of, space travel, our consciousness and how we treat each other. This, hands down, is the most important issue. Every aspect of your reality changes when you're experiencing what I call multidimensional reality. An experience that I've had that really touched my heart with the start of all this was I was in my lounge room and broad daylight, middle of the day, and I was approached to what I can only call is liquid blue light beings. Now, before this experience, I'd seen these liquid blue light orbs coming in and out of my house. I didn't know what it was, but one day they appeared as 7-foot tall light beings. They were all male, they were all female, and the information exchange from that experience, it didn't last too long, but there was like, it's almost like somebody stuck a USB stick in your consciousness and all this data, imagery, information of a wide range of scope on different aspects of not just humanity, but who we are, where we come from. All this data just came flooding in. But the information from this being was relating to who I am, that I need to wake up and remember who I really am. It comes down to something that I call Operation Starseed. And why I say starseeds, not just are we from the stars, we are from Source, an overall collective. They showed me the makeup of this reality. I've shown other universes, and each universe we could call Source or God, and it had its own planes and dimensions that created another super intelligence. These universes were cell of a bigger intelligence. And so from that understanding and that experience, they were showing me that we've come down the planes and dimensions, the strongest souls right now, to help uplift the consciousness evolution here. We're here for conscious evolution to help humanity help themselves.
So as they're helping us evolve genetically, they're also helping us evolve on a consciousness level. They bring us various belief systems, religions. They instill social norms in us that help us self-police ourselves and manicure our consciousness along with our genetics to develop them in tandem. Even today, these experiments are compartmentalized through religion, language, geographic location, and culture. And there's also a cosmic component. The goal is that eventually the civilization that they're experimenting on and working on become self-guiding. They get to a point to where they control their own genetics and their own consciousness development, as well as join this super federation in going out to other planets and assisting those civilizations in the same process. Now that we've developed to a point of traveling the cosmos ourselves, we've gotten to a point to where we're self-managing ourselves, and this super federation is being disbanded, and we're taking over our own genetic and spiritual development. As a result of all of this, the infrastructure that has been built out secretly in our solar system will now be handed over to the rest of humanity.
Another very important point to note here is that the DNA changes that the genetic farmers put in us are at this point still predominantly dormant. They are, if you will, locked up in the 95+% of our DNA that appears to be not normally used, that our scientists call junk DNA.
We only use about 5 to 10% of our DNA for building our body. They call these coding DNA sequences, meaning that they code proteins to make our physical body with. 90 to 95% of our DNA is non-coding DNA. In other words, mainstream science has no idea what this DNA really does. They call it, quote, junk DNA. why would any sort of intelligent designer put junk in our body? Put something in our body that's useless? That wouldn't happen. In fact, what I believe is that this 90 to 95% of junk DNA is actually used metaphysically. It's used for our consciousness in ways that we just don't really understand yet.
Now, certain cosmic laws were established for these genetic experiments. To avoid violating these cosmic laws, some of these ET genetic farmer races would incarnate as humans and allow themselves to be experimented upon. These genetic farmer races would also incarnate here for raising our consciousness. We have various people like Tesla and Einstein who are most likely starseeds or incarnates of these extraterrestrials. These people brought philosophies and scientific principles that radically changed our civilization.
One of my favorite quotes from Nikola Tesla is that he said the gift of mental power comes from God, the divine being, and if we concentrate our minds on that truth, we become in tune with this great power. So I think what Tesla was trying to tell us is that there is this sort of divine intelligence out there that every single one of us has access to if we choose to access it, if we do what's necessary, if we open our minds up to access or to tap into that greater intelligence.
According to the different contactees that I've interviewed, basically what we're witnessing at the very moment is a temporal war between different extraterrestrial groups. There's a positive extraterrestrial group, predominantly human-looking, that basically want us to develop our civilization along the path of an ethical, responsible civilization where we basically become part of a galactic community. There's another extraterrestrial group that are aggressive and they want the Earth to be basically develop along the lines of a tyrannical civilization.
In a way, these 22 experiments were similar to competing term papers. Each of these races were trying to make their experiment the one that came out on top. So they would often sabotage each other's experiments. And one of the ways they did this was to manipulate time. And this is what led to the Mandela effect that we're experiencing today.
The Mandela effect is this idea that people have different recollections of historical events. The most famous one is some people remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison and others don't. What the Mandela effect represents is it's an echo of this temporal war that different extraterrestrial groups are trying to take us down one timeline or the other, depending on which faction is dominant at any time.
There's a long history of colonization projects and starting over. The best evidence of that is called Gosford glyphs in Australia. So the first landings were actually in Australia, not in Africa. It's written in the stone on the Gosford glyphs, and it talks about how a ship came down. There was a Denisovian man, the original man that was here. They added their genetics to him, and they created the hybrids.
When they did this, they manipulated to create basically the Aboriginal, the original people. And it was so they could incarnate into that body and have the Earth human experience. When I talked to the king of the Raven tribe, Ulukai Brendan Murray, a lot of his information tied in with James and myself through contacts.
The tribe used to meet the star people there. And then what happened was it was all positive and consensual. But then something happened at a time where other beings were turning up and started to actually remove people from that site and take them on their crafts. And in a time when the human DNA had that multi-strain 6 double helixes instead of the 2 that we've been hinted to, where the people would transform and escape these the kidnappings from these crafts, and the older people informed me that they were taking people off to other continents and creating new humans out of our DNA here, and it was a group from the Orions who were meant to be coming and doing the kidnapping, a negative ET group. Right across this continent, the DNA become attached to the land and the land attached to the actual DNA. We are no different to the planet itself. or just a fractal. I know that there was 7 major forms of our DNA created in the first place. And I know that some people talk about when there was 7 major forms of DNA was first created, that they created another, like a future form of another 5, like semitones, for the development of the interbreeding, so that when these different physical aspects come together to create new life, then the soul structure was different as well from the previous generations. So that soul structure was already implemented in the ethos. So it's like music, there's 7 major tones, 5 semitones, which makes 12. The creators understood that there was a time when these 7 major forms of humans were going to start to mingle. And so they allotted these 5 extra tones or semitones for them people to be interbred with and to become interracial.
Now, a lot of elders, whether it's in America or Australia or other cultures, they talk about that they were seeded by the Pleiadians. We also have a lot of rock paintings and cave art depicting what we call the Wandjina, the sky beings.
My name is Clifford Mahudi. I'm a Zuni Pueblo Indian, and I have been working to get a lot of information among the indigenous groups, especially the North American Indians and our neighbors to the south, our brothers and sisters, the Mesoamerican Indian people. And I'm doing this because it is about time that we start gathering the information to convey and pass on to future generations. The origins of those protocols were provided by what, again, we call the star people, or are the spiritual people from different realms, primarily from what we call the sky people, and also the deities that they brought in from other parts of the cosmos. They were put in place so that they have one way of worship. If you look at it in terms of the origin of what we are going, we started out is that technology and spirituality were in connected, real tight in the beginning, and throughout the ages they separated technology away from the spirituality, and then it becomes a hard science. And somewhere in that path, man invented religion. Religion was primarily for 3 basic reasons. First of all, it was fear, and of course the other one was control, and the third one was greed. And so it worked against spirituality. The indigenous community had technology that was performed through the conscious methodology.